But you are one of the only guests that I bring on here, that really knows their stuff about baseball. And that's no offense to any other guest that I bring on, but you are one of the few people that I know that still absolutely adore and love the sport. So we're going to take a few different approaches to it. We are going to get to our Cleveland Guardians. We'll talk about them. I want to talk about Shohei Ohtani moving to the Dodgers as well. But I want to start with this time last year, I brought you on the show, it was about a year ago, and we talked about all these rule changes in baseball that were happening. And if you recall, I am a huge traditionalist when it comes to the game. I did not
Yep.
think the pitch clock was going to work. I did not think the bigger bases was going to be a thing. I did not know about, the time they gave for the pitcher. You get two throws over to first base. But I watched opening day last year, the Guardians, and by about the third inning, I was like, yeah, I was wrong. The pitch clock works. Now I have said I think there is a happy medium between a game going 3 hours and a game being too short, hour and a half, 2 hours. So I don't know. I think that, you could theoretically boost it up to a 20-second quad when there's not runners on base. I think sometimes when there's nobody on base, it does feel a little bit too rushed. But just your overall thoughts on, all the pace of play and the changes that baseball made. As a fan of the sport, do you like all what's happening? And do you really think it brought fans back to the sport?
First, I want to comment on what I said last week when David Profisek, our good friend, was on. That 14 inning game, Astros Guardians last year, you fit in 4 hours and 3 minutes of baseball, 14 innings. I mean, that's a great bargain value, first off. But to answer your question, I think most of the changes were pretty good positively. Bigger bases, as someone who was more of a speed threat when I was playing baseball, like just having those bigger bases, being able to get even just a couple inches sometimes can be the difference between a out and being able to get to that next base. Like that was really huge. You saw Acuna Jr. be able to go and swipe all those bags. I mean, that was impressive. You saw a bunch of other guys start running a little bit more again. Uh, I think the 15 seconds at least when there aren't runners on base is okay. Maybe 16. I would say I would bump up the when runners aren't on base. What right now it's at 18, I think
No, it's
still.
at 20.
It's at yeah, I would keep it at 20. I don't The problem is just that the main thing we'll find out this year, since once this season concludes, we'll have more data, 2 years of pitching data to kind of go through and see if there is some sort of a trend for sure with pitching injuries. But that's something I am concerned about to a degree. I think, there could be some slight tweaks and modifications here or there with that pitch clock. It's just trying to make sure that you're not overworking pitchers, because there were guys like last year, I know you saw just some guys working faster, some more injuries to guys who are a little bit more durable. But, we'll find out once we have more data. Overall, the shift, I was happy about that. You saw some more hits getting through. Uh, I mean, overall, most of the rule changes were pretty good. The runner on second, I'm mostly indifferent to that right now. But at least, if I think that game with, as I mentioned earlier, the Guardians Astros last year, what was it, June 9th, a Friday? That would have gone that might have gone 6 hours without
Yeah,
that.
really, it might have gone 6 hours, and I don't know if you heard, but I was telling David in that interview. I used the example of I did go to a Guardians game. I went to one last year,
Hmm.
and it was very late in the year. It was like middle of September. It was an unusual day because it started out warm and the day ended cold. So I didn't know what I necessarily needed. So I didn't bring a jacket with me, and I got cold during the game. So I go down to the team shop and get myself a sweatshirt. Well,
Right.
in years past, I maybe would have missed a half an inning or an inning here, and I almost missed like a third of the game.
Yeah, that's why I'm making sure, if I'm going to get, pardon me, going to get some snacks, I'm just trying to keep my eyes on the action or trying to listen if it's in a spot where you've got Tom Hamilton or Jim Rosenhouse's voice around the stadium playing, and just try to keep that ear out, see what's going on.
So I know you're going to disagree with me on this. Everybody that I talk to thinks I'm the most crazy person in the world. And again, I don't understand baseball, so I acknowledge it. But when I look at baseball, there's this universal consensus out there, like there was for 10 years, that Mike Trout's the best player. And now the universal consensus out there is that Shohei Ohtani is obviously the best player. And Ohtani is a unicorn. I've never denied that. But I think it's really hard to tell who a best player is in baseball because I think baseball, even more than a sport like football, where it's a 53-man roster, I think baseball is so dependent on a guy can go 4 for 4 in a lineup. And if the rest of the team doesn't get a hit, it doesn't matter. Vice versa with pitching. A guy can go 8 innings and give up 2 hits, but if he doesn't get any run support, it doesn't matter. So I think Ohtani to the Dodgers is obviously a big deal. The Dodgers have a basically an all-star team for not only a starting lineup but a pitching staff as well. But I don't think it's a lock that they're going to win the World Series this year.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I would put Ohtani in a separate category by himself, just in that best player discussion. Mike Trout has been injured the last couple of years, hasn't played a full season in a couple of, it's been, I think, over a half decade now. But Trout, if he's healthy, especially since the Angels now have that DH slot open, he could definitely get back to the best player in baseball. Like, he was doing things no one else was able to do. He is still among that upper echelon, in my opinion. Like, every time he steps foot on a ball field, he just rakes. He just does everything he needs to do. But if he can remain healthy, and he's going to have I think it's a lower back issue that he's going to have to deal with the rest of his career. That's one thing. But baseball, I guess, in a way, I can kind of agree with you on that sentiment where it's hard to judge. But you can just, like, I guess in a way, there's a way to see and tell. It's just hard to explain. Like right now, like I would say, honestly, Ronald Acuna Jr., Atlanta Braves, like he was a rising star for years as a prospect. And when he got up, I mean, he started hitting. I still remember, he did pretty well, during that home run derby here in Cleveland. And the year after he came back from his ACL surgery, he wasn't quite himself yet. I think it was 2022. He came back. He tore it the year the Braves won the World Series. And then this past year, you saw the full monster unleashed. And, a guy who's like mainly with baseball, I guess, when you have all 5 tools or 6 tools, depending on how, evaluators go, especially like hit, power, speed, everything like that, just everything combined. And that's what you had with Trout. That's what you got with Acuna. I mean, that's really, just having that all around, just complete package player. That's, a guy who I'd be like, yeah, that's the best guy in baseball. And I don't know if it's just me. Maybe it's just like, typically I feel like it's been outfielders. And sometimes there are power threats, like Albert Pujols was that for a while. He wasn't necessarily a speedy guy, but he hit, he got on base. He had a great batter's eye. The prodigious power. I mean, it goes through phases. And right now, Acuna is that guy right now. And Ohtani, is up there. Obviously, his value is a little bit different this year, just being a DH only, recovering from Tommy John surgery in his throwing arm. But we'll see. I honestly think that I don't know what's going to happen next year when Ohtani gets back on the mound. Because if he starts to struggle even a little bit, I would consider just shutting down the pitching experiment.
I
That's
completely agree with you.
because he's
I've been
such a
saying
great
that.
hitter, and if he unlocks like another level, he led all of baseball with a 1.066 OPS this past year. And if he somehow surpasses that or even gets close to that number again, and he does even better somehow statistically on offense, surrounded by MVP Betts and MVP Freeman, I mean, what can you do? And also, they got Clayton Kershaw back, even though he's going to start on the IL. He's a former MVP as well. I'm not kidding. He won Cy Young and MVP. What was it, 2015, 2014, somewhere around there? I mean, that team's got, what, 4 or 5 MVPs on that roster. I mean, and October's a whole different deal. As you mentioned, you said, you don't think that the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. I don't know. Especially since I loved Arizona last year as a team, but I'm like, I just couldn't pick them to advance against the Brewers. And that was until I found out Brandon Woodruff would go down with the injury that he did. And he ended up resigning with the Brewers after non-tendering, blah, blah, blah. But baseball is just so funny because any team can get hot. You saw the Royals on the first of their 2 World Series trips where they lost to the Giants. Like, that was one year, and then the next year they had it all together. They weren't necessarily underdogs anymore.
No, but that
Baseball
team
is
had
that
a great bullpen, though.
they
That
did. You
team
had
made
Wade
it like a
Davis, you had
6 inning.
Greg Holland, you had not Yordano Ventura, rest in peace to that guy who was the other one, but uh Kelvin Herrera, I think might have been the name. But you had all those 3 or 4 guys in that bullpen, and you still had Ventura. You had a couple guys in that rotation who just were, doing really well at that point. The lineup was solid enough. You had a good enough they were basically the Cleveland Guardians before the Cleveland Guardians right now, except
Yes.
minus the pitching being quite as good. But
So I'm
yeah.
gonna I'm gonna put you on the spot. I
Oh
had
boy.
already said that I don't think the Dodgers are gonna win the world. I'm not gonna give my World Series prediction. Well, I'm not gonna give my winner prediction. I will say there's something in my head that's telling me it's gonna be the Baltimore Orioles coming out of the American League.
Hmm.
And I think coming out of the National League will be the Atlanta Braves. That's my World Series prediction. A little bit of a different World Series. I have Braves, Orioles, not confident in it at all, but I'm going to put you on the spot as a baseball guy. You don't got to give me who you think is going to win the World Series, but who do you think is most likely to come out of the American League and then the National League?
Oh God. You weren't kidding. That's tough. I feel like I mean, even not taking anything like even we all know that I'm a Cleveland Guardians fan and I've covered the Guardians before, etc. I mean, as long as their pitching works and they can get a little bit more pop in that lineup, I mean, please bring up Chase DeLauder for opening day. That would be awesome. But honestly, the Orioles are one of those teams that I could definitely agree with you on. Like they're a team I could see. I wouldn't discount the Rangers. The Astros have been there and done that before. They've got 1 or 2 guys. Like I think Alex Bregman is on the verge of free agency, if I'm not mistaken. God, I can't believe that extension was signed so long ago. But the Orioles have a good core. I would just caution. The only thing I would say is that they've still got guys. Even though Henderson was a Rookie of the Year, even though they got one of the best catchers in baseball and Adley Rushman, you got Jackson Holiday, the son of Matt Holiday, and there's another Holiday on the way. By the way, there's going to be at least another one in the majors in the next couple of years. There's a high schooler Holiday, the younger brother, and then I mean the Orioles are loaded with talent, and they would be the perfect match with the Guardians for a trade partner. Outfielders, they got a lot of them in the minors, and then versus like some of our pitching depth, even though it's taken a little bit of a hit in Cleveland, like that's something that they would line up. But Baltimore's a good pick. Like that's one where it's like I don't have a favorite in the American League. Like it's very tough to predict that one. For the National League, I mean, I like the pick of the Braves. They would probably be my pick if I had to choose someone today. Them, the Dodgers, or there's the third team, and this one might surprise you a little bit. The Cincinnati Reds. They've
Oh,
got
interesting.
now, and this is not to placate my 2 uncles on the one side of the family. But the Reds have a really, really good core. They've a lot of their young talent has started graduating. Matt McClain had like over 3 WAR last year. Second base shortstop. I think he'll mainly play at the Keystone. Ellie De La Cruz got off to that sizzling start. Obviously, some concerns in his profile, but like he should be good as long as he's able to make those adjustments. Spencer Steer, Christian Encarnacion Strand. I mean, the pitching is coming along well. Andrew Abbott. If Hunter Green can finally limit runs with what his stuff is, oh my God. And you've got outfielders, and you're having to move guys around to other positions just to fit them on the diamond. That is how good you have a team like Cincinnati. I'm not saying that they're going to get there this year. I don't think they are, but if there was a dark horse among them and those other 2 teams, the Dodgers and Braves I listed, they would be a team that maybe surprises some more people because they were, I think, them and the Cubs were in contention for all the way down to the wire almost for the most part. So don't sleep on the Reds is all I'll say.
All right, Fitz. Last baseball question for you. Our Guardians have a new manager. His name is obviously Stephen Vogt. So I'm just gonna pose the question like this. To me, there should be no reason why this team should not at least make the playoffs, even if they win
Mm.
85 games as the AL Central champions.
Yeah, I mean, it's all contingent on arm health. I mean, you saw that like with 2021, it wasn't quite as bad of an injury plague with the pitching, But Bieber went down for a while. McKenzie was out almost all of the year. McKenzie's healthy. Bieber's got his velo back up and he's healthy right now, as far as we know. Gavin Williams, a little bit of a scare the other day. And then you got, you've got Tanner Bybee. That's a guy who I would love to lock up right freaking now. I would love to have him put ink to paper, like what, 650 at an option, all good. And then Logan Tanner Allen. I know I'm missing someone else from that rotation. I know from the Young Guns, I'm missing somebody. So don't yell at me, folks, for forgetting. I've been on for those of you
No,
who don't know, with my job at the Morning Journal, I have been on
feels
a
about the
wrestling
5.
grind.
I mean, that feels about the 5.
There was another guy who I was thinking about earlier, but just there is so much depth. And even Carlos Carrasco, even if he doesn't win a pitching spot in the rotation, he could definitely fill in that long man role. I'm not the biggest Xavier Curry fan. I think he's solid. I think Hunter Gaddis, I don't see the stuff with him. I don't see it with Gaddis. Gaddis has never really impressed me, so I think he's going to be on the outs. The main thing with the Guardians is I know you like the power and the potential of DDLS. I don't even want to dare say that name wrong. But you got to carry the best guys on the roster. And if you're going to try and juggle that Rule 5 ability with him, I don't think it's going to work. I think you got to send him back, because honestly, the fact that I don't think they're going to bring up Manzardo, even though I think he should be up on opening day. He's one of your best 9 hitters, period. He's one of your best 9. And my hope is in that there's been a lot of talk, a lot of steam the last couple of weeks, especially when Jeff Passan said that there could be the potential, of maybe seeing Chase DeLauder come out into the lineup opening day. And that would hopefully mean that maybe a contract extension is in the works. Don't know, could not be, but you saw with Stephen Kwan, even though he wasn't the same kind of caliber, he came up opening day and he impacted, and he's been a starter for 2 years and he'll be his 3rd straight year. DeLauder, I was trying to learn more about him last year, and oh my God, I have learned a lot. I know he's got power. I know he's good in the outfield, and maybe Tyler Freeman for right now holds that role in center field, but somewhere in one of those corners that, obviously Quan and left, but oh my God, DeLauder, please bring him up right now. Because if you leave both Manzardo and DeLauder down in AAA to start the year, I don't care about the March, April excuse. I'm going to just say this utter bullshit. I get it. Cold weather. A lot of these guys who play in the major leagues, not all, have usually played in a lot of warmer climates, whether in college or in high school or both. But you've got to field the best team, period. If you do that, then you have a chance to go to the playoffs. I mean, look at what team was it that delayed the prospect promotion for this year? I mean, this past year, the other year, like you saw a couple of teams were like, if they promoted prospects earlier, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. They would have, period. And yet they held them down just to get that service time. And sometimes, not long, just long enough to prevent them from getting that top 2 finish in the Rookie of the Year award. That's why Bybee now has a full year service time versus a not full year. But, the Guardians should hopefully make the playoffs, but you have to bring up at least one of Manzardo or DeLauder for opening day. And the hard part about DeLauder is that he's not had as much time or any time at AAA compared to Manzardo. So that's the only issue with bringing him up early, but I think he's impressed. He just hit a 2-run home run, I think a little bit ago during a spring training game. Today it's March 12th when we're recording. I'm just going to say that, but yeah, you got to have one of those 2 guys in the opening day lineup, or at least on the opening day roster. And you have to obviously maintain the pitching health. If the pitching stays healthy, and you saw that in 2022, you'll be okay. And also producing runs. I'm interested though, the last thing before we move on, and I know I'm rambling, Brandon, I know, is how Tyler Freeman does, because he's played decently from the clips I've seen in center field. I haven't had time to digest the whole thing, but that has been a very intriguing fit for him. Like, I know he can bounce around the diamond, and trying to fit him into the lineup as maybe one of those shortstops who doesn't end up getting traded. But yeah, I mean, he could be someone, and they optioned Juan Brito to AAA already and a couple others. And Angel Martinez, though, I would look out for him. Maybe I know that it may not sound feasible to some, but honestly, he has turned my head this spring. And it's like he was picking up a little steam the last year or two. Oh my God, like this spring, he's really been nuking the ball.
Like that clip from the Brainsport podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brainsport podcast right here
on YouTube.